Since today's art and story has some funky time things going on in it, I decided to record the intro after I recorded the story and the outro and the editing. And as you'll soon notice, yes, my hair is cut, my shirt is different, and my toe is broken. It's been an interesting week. But anyway, let's get into CyberKnight and the Eternal Darkness. The Knights of the Golden Spiral were a fierce group of warriors that dedicated their lives to the service and protection of King Gyros. From an early age, those who were to be sworn into the knighthood would leave their families to be rigorously trained in various forms of combat, including different sword fighting and cavalry-based techniques. King Gyros' ideology was to have a well-rounded army of protectors that would easily adapt to any situations, whether on their own or alongside their fellow knights. For the most part, all the knights in training followed the intense combat program, but one particular trainee wasn't born with the same combat-ready attitude as everyone else. Alistar would often spend his days lounging under trees on the sidelines. He much preferred to watch the combat than partake in it. Unlike all the other knights to be, Alistar didn't leave his family when he was a young boy because, as far as he knew, he didn't have one. He had grown up in the castle and was taken care of by the king's court, where his every need was attended to with utmost care. When he was older, King Gyros had told him that the Knights of the Golden Spiral had found him all alone in the woods as a baby and had taken him back to the castle. King Gyros decided that he would raise Alistar in the castle until he was old enough to join the knights in their training camp. Obviously, being raised around royalty and riches had changed Alistar's mentality. He became lazy and complacent, believing that he would be given anything he wanted and would never have to actively deal with any problems that may arise in his life. Not to mention that he also acted like he was better than everyone else, saying he was the king's son and heir to the throne, which wasn't even remotely true. This attitude made him the weakest yet most infamous among the knights in training. One day, long after the sun had set, Alistar was assigned to accompany a team of veteran knights into the woods on a mission. People from the village claimed to hear ungodly noises followed by long periods of eerie silence emanating from the woods. The knights all donned their armor and mounted their horses, except for Alistar. He had reached a point where he should have been fitted for armor and gotten a horse of his own and received the Golden Spiral, but he always put it off, convinced that eventually someone would just hand everything to him. To accommodate, Alistar was given an old suit that was way too big for him, and a sturdy but otherwise not too remarkable steed named Black Coal. The group made their way deep into the woods, encountering nothing and hearing only the bone-chilling sounds of silence. They trekked on for a little while until the head knight Marcus called for them to halt. The wind was swirling around them, forming a vortex. It kept getting more and more powerful, blowing around leaves and even small branches and rocks. Marcus had ordered an immediate retreat, and all the well-trained knights rode out of the rapidly forming vortex, leaving Alistar behind. Not only was Alistar inexperienced at riding a horse, but the swirling debris was pelting against Black Coal's body, making gashes in his unarmored skin, one rock even taking out one of his eyes. The wind vortex was picking up at a rapid rate, now kicking up dirt and cutting off Alistar from Marcus and the other knights. Not only could he no longer get back to them, he couldn't even see or hear the group anymore. Black Coal was struck with another rock and was knocked off his feet, throwing Alistar to the ground. He tried to pick himself up with little success due to the clunky armor when flashes of green light started sparking within the vortex. Lightning was arcing all around Alistar, with some bolts striking the ground right next to him and Black Coal. Alistar knelt down next to his horse to make sure he was okay. When he looked up, he saw a bolt of green lightning coming right for him. He didn't have time to react because less than a second later, everything went black. All Alistar heard was screaming. He thought maybe the vortex had died down and the other knights were checking on him, but other sounds soon started to fade into existence. He couldn't discern any individual sound, and altogether, it was chaos. Alistar's eyes shot open, and the first difference he noticed was that the sky was a murky red. He didn't know how long he had been out for, but he figured it could only be a few hours for dawn to most likely rise. He fought against the armor weighing him down and sat up when he noticed the second, more prominent difference. Not only did the trees and surrounding forest disappear, but a couple miles in front of him stood a towering but smoking city, with buildings touching the blood-red sky. Alistar was confused. There was no way they could have completely renovated King Gyros' castle while he and the knights were away. He tore his eyes away from the towering buildings and looked down at Black Coal. His horse was lying on his side and breathing heavily. He was badly injured. Deep gashes were all over his skin and one eye was bleeding. Alistar didn't know what to do. He could barely stand up straight, so there was no way he could walk towards the skyline, and black coal was in no condition to take him there on horseback. He rested his head on black coal and closed his eyes again. Once more, Alistar heard the sounds before he opened his eyes. He heard the mumbles of several people. He became hopeful that what he saw before was only a dream, and he would see Marcus and the knights in the forest again. But that hope was gone when he heard a stern female voice. "Be careful! We don't know where he came from. He could be part of the Eternal Darkness." Alistar opened his eyes and saw he was surrounded by people all clad in similar outfits with the same logo, like how all the knights would wear the crest of the golden spiral on their armor. He tried to speak up to defend himself, but the woman cut him off. "Silence you! We're taking you back to the lab and we'll determine for ourselves what you are." She turned to her allies. "Grab him, and his horse too." The soldiers grabbed Alistar and Black Coal and dragged them through the field towards the towering city. Alistar kept his head down the entire trip, only lifting it when his captors stopped in front of a metal door. The woman, who was clearly the one in charge, whispered something to a figure behind the door, and it opened. They dragged him inside and hoisted him onto a table. The woman ordered her soldiers to remove the armor, but after several minutes of prying, they found they could not separate Alistar and the armor. They had become one and the same. They started hooking them up with a whole bunch of wires and nodes and staring at their computers. Alistar didn't understand what was going on, but luckily the woman spoke up again. "We're taking readings of your energy to see where you've come from. Usually we'd be able to determine if you were a threat to us, and even if you were part of the Eternal Darkness immediately, but since we can't take your armor off, it's going to take a little longer." Alistar noticed something. That was the second time she had accused him of being part of something called the Eternal Darkness. But what was that? You're wondering what the Eternal Darkness is. Our technology gives us access to your brainwaves and, in a less scientific sense, your inner thoughts. As you clearly seem to genuinely not know about the Eternal Darkness, I think it's safe to say you're not a threat. At least, not one from them. Many years ago, a group of knights called the Knights of the Golden Spiral protected this area and kept the peace. But soon a great evil, known as the Eternal Darkness, rose to power and attacked the Knights' kingdom. Despite their intense training, they were ill-equipped to stop it, and the darkness decimated the kingdom in mere minutes. Ever since then, future generations have grown up without ever seeing the sun. We've developed as a society, and our technology has continued to improve, except for any technology invented that could be seen as a threat to the Eternal Darkness. We've been hiding down here, doing what little we can to fight back, without them noticing. But we haven't had any major success in casting them— Hey! Where are you going? Alistar bolted up and ripped the wires off of his armor. He was storming out of the room with reinvigorated strength. He knew he wasn't always the best soldier, and never took training seriously, but he still had cared for his fellow knights and the king who had taken him in. The Eternal Darkness was going to pay for wiping them out, for taking all those innocent lives that King Gyros protected. He pushed past the man standing at the door and stepped outside. He didn't know what the Eternal Darkness was, where he would find it, or even what it looked like, but he was hungry for vengeance, and slaying the darkness was the only thing that would satiate that hunger. He drew his sword from his sheath and raised it toward the sky. Almost as if it sensed his intentions, a cloud of black smoke shot from the sky directly toward Alistar. It wrapped around the blade of his sword, leaving only the hilt intact, and knocked him square in the chest. Everything went blurry as Alistar fought the urge to pass out for a third time that day, but he also failed to pay attention during that part of his training, and everything went black once more. When he came to, Alistar found himself face to helmet with the woman again. She had a furious yet somehow understanding look on her face. "The scans were nearly complete when you went to fight the greatest evil this land has ever known. Nice going, by the way. You almost gave away our location. But the scans were able to show us some of your memories. You disappeared through that vortex only a couple days before the Eternal Darkness destroyed everything. The knights you were traveling with reported what happened to King Gyros, who immediately sent out a rather large search party to find you. They were instructed not to return until they found you, and as such, were unprepared for such a large-scale attack. You may not have been the greatest knight. In fact, you may have been one of the worst. But you truly did care for them. The world has changed. It's been a very long while since they were wiped out, but maybe you can avenge them. Will you help us if we help you?" The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a rusty seal of the golden spiral. Alistar took it from her and examined it. It was in horrible condition, but it was the real deal. As I said, it's been a very long time since then. So, do we have a deal? The woman stuck out her hand and offered it to him. He took it, and they shook. "Commander Jennings, pleased to meet your acquaintance.
Alistar,
he replied. Alistar and Jennings made their way to the armory where Black Hole was standing, covered in a shiny coat of metal with neon green accents. We were able to heal him up by infusing him with some of our modern technology. I'm thinking we could do the same for you. You know, to give you a fighting chance. Alistar spent the next few weeks getting modern upgrades to his armor, as well as a new sword and shield made from hard light, all while catching up on what was now decades worth of training that he missed. Soon, the Eternal Darkness would fear him. He would become the CyberKnight. And so that concludes CyberKnight and the Eternal Darkness. For now. I had a lot of fun working on this project because I love working with neon and glowy bits, just because it looks so cool, and also there's something I want to try in the future, but that requires money and materials that I'm not quite sure exist in this world, so I'm going to have to do more research on that. But the story was so much fun to write. It wound up being like the longest story ever written. It turned out to be like 4 pages long, where like American Demons and Legend of the Demon Hunter. I work with a lot of demons on this channel. Interesting. Those two were like 2 pages each, which is weird, but now this is double the length. And because I just had the base story, I'm like, oh, but what if this happens? Why would this happen? And what would this happen? This would be cool if that happened. And this could be a cool cliffhanger. And that kind of just snowballed and got away from me. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed the artwork. And if you want, feel free to like this video. It's completely free and it looks great on a resume. And if you want to see more story stuff, there's American Demons and there's Legend of the Demon Hunter. And there's another one for Project, there's 2 actually for Project Phoenix. I'll probably have a playlist of all the stories that I've done right next to me. And that's all I've got for you today. This is KyngPin Creations, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.